Hello and welcome to India Today, India Tomorrow, this special show where we bring you a slice of life and history by traversing generations. Joining us now are two creative powerhouses, Aparna Sen, director, actor, writer, and Konkona Sen Sharma, actor, director. Thank you both very much for joining me on...
And writer.
And writer, okay,
yes.
And writer. Creative powerhouse.
Well,
Would that be the right way to put it? That at the end of the day, that's what the Sens today embody. Creative powerhouses. Or are you very different people actually, and creativity is the one bond that brings you together?
I don't see us as being that different actually.
You're similar people?
We are similar people in the sense that our values are the same, very much the same. Our ways of functioning can be a little different. Konkona is, I think, more restrained than I am.
That's saying a lot, is
younger,
it?
Yeah, she's more restrained.
But the creativity, is the creativity the bond in a sense that brings two generations together?
Yeah, possibly. That's possibly part of it, no? Hugely. I think we are similar as people and we get along well. We like the way we function. We give each other a lot of space. I think we're just used to the way the other person is, I think, you know, over the years maybe.
And we let each other be a lot.
Yeah.
No generation
like
gap?
Well, I've never felt
No,
a generation gap
really.
with my parents. I don't feel a generation gap with my children.
Yeah.
And,
I just don't feel any generation gap, even with my grandmother.
And are you all naturally creative people, you think? Is it instinctively, or is this some kind of family tradition again of the Sens and the Sharmas being extensively creative people?
You know, Rajdeep, my parents really had what we can call a life in the arts. So even though we're not terribly scientifically inclined or technologically inclined, well, we have led a life in the arts. I mean, since we were children, we were taken to see not only very good films, but also taken to music conferences and dance recitals and what have you. So, and taken to art exhibitions. So
you
basically exposed.
You grew up in that embryo of cinema. I mean, your father was, Gupta was one of the sort of founders of the Calcutta Film Society,
so we were all
a friend of Satyajit Ray. So for you, it was a natural transition into cinema.
Yeah. That, but also
you never thought of anything else?
No. Oh, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be, when I was very young, I wanted to be a trapeze artist.
Really?
Yeah. Then I wanted to be a writer. And actually, yeah, then I became an actor. But I never thought of making films. It was only when I was acting and that I got very tired of doing the same kind of things every day, day in and day out, which was not my kind of cinema, that I actually thought of, well, why don't I do it myself?
Interesting, because in your case, it perhaps was not so obvious. It wasn't as if you were necessarily being pushed into the world of cinema and arts, right?
No, not at all. But you know, we always say that in our family, my older sister is the rebel, because she didn't join, you know, cinema, theatre, or any of that, anything like that. Yeah.
So basically, joining cinema was conformism.
As a joke, I say that, yes, but I.
The reluctant debutante.
Yeah.
You were reluctant?
No, yeah, because I never really wanted to act in films or you know, didn't really think that I'd be associated with films in any way. There was no real strong inclination or anything of the sort. But I think that, like she said, even I think my growing up years was also possibly similar, maybe a little more diluted, but similar in the sense that, you know, I think the, you know, just the emphasis on liberal arts and culture and things like that was very strong, and that was more
you didn't have Satyajit Ray walking in and out of your house like she had.
You missed that.
You missed that, right? You were so
lucky. But she had other directors. She had Gautam Ghosh and Rita Ora Ghosh. All these people
walking in
and out of the house constantly.
You know, the creative intellectual experiences in that sense perhaps were similar, because I tell you, I remember your father, Mukul Sharma, because I was at the Times of India in those days, and
Mukul is the one who's scientifically inclined.
Yeah, he is. I know. He said, he used to tell us very consciously, I'm a science journalist, and we didn't quite know what that was. It sounded like an oxymoron almost at the time. But I'm just wondering, did you want to be a journalist ever instead of being a...
I kind of, you know, the thing is, I was always a bit of a drifter and didn't ever have any strong feelings about what I wanted to do or what I wanted to accomplish or achieve or anything like that. But I knew that I would work. I knew I had to work, and that was the way of being, because I'd always seen my mother as a working mother also, and I just never accepted.
She wanted to be an editor.
So I
Remember?
She wanted to be an editor, which again you became. With
No,
Sananda.
because I was an editor, she used to come to my office and she used to sit in my chair. I had to get up. And then she would pretend, when she was a child, pretend to be the editor. She also played lots of games with me when she was the film director and she was directing me as an actress.
You know, just passing the time.
This is when she was a child. She
And
used
this
to do
was
all
when
that.
you were editing
Shananda.
Shananda.
That's when she used to come to the office and she told me that she wanted to be the editor.
Chicken sandwiches were also very
The
good.
chicken
I used to like
sandwiches,
to-
she would order them, sit there and pretend to be
and
the
play.
editor.
I would just play.
And I told her that, even later you said you wanted to be in journalism. So I said, you know, it will take a very long time. You'll write things that the editor will throw away because there'll be some phone call from some politician. And, you know, it's a very, very rough way up.
You seem to have a very low opinion of us journalists, unfortunately.
Wonder why.
I wonder why, yes. I wonder why.
Well, no, not really, because no, I know how hard the way up is. But I was taken on because I was a celebrity already. So I was just a celebrity editor. I don't think they expected me to actually work. I think there was actually, they
And
were
it ran
actually
successfully for so
quite
many years.
surprised.
You know, but
I was a founding editor.
But Aparna, at the end of the day, you didn't have did you have a choice when, for example, you did a film with Satyajit Ray at the age of 16? I mean, you know, that's
Younger,
like
actually.
being told that you've got a banquet
Younger,
being
actually.
offered as a teenager.
Started when I was 14, it released when I was 15. Yeah, so I was still 15, I turned 16 later. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It was, you know, I knew that I was going to do it actually in a way. Because when I had been reading that story, Samapti, in Tagore's collection of short stories, and I had thought this will sound incredible and improbable, but it's true. And I thought that, oh, you know, if somebody were to cast me as Mrinmoy in Samapti, how nice that would be. And then there's a telephone call, and I know that it's Ray. I just knew. And I picked up the phone, and he said, may I speak to Chitu? That's my father. So I said, who's speaking, please? This is Satyajit Ray. And I didn't have to say it, but I said, oh, I'm his eldest daughter speaking, Aparna. There was no need for me to say that. And then Baba went, and he came back and said, he wants you in this film.
That's, you know, interesting, because on the other hand, you didn't have a Satyajit Ray coming and picking up the phone and saying that's the film you've got to do. Instead, you had to do your film with your mother.
My first film, actually, my first two films were Bengali films, which
that's
were
right.
not with my mum.
But the first big film, let's put it this way, okay, in terms of the
Yeah.
first film that brought you recognition
That's true.
was with your mother.
Yeah, that's true.
And did that just happen by chance, or by then were you convinced that enough of the possibility of
No.
chicken sandwiches in journalism, now is the time to do something serious with life?
No, I was very reluctant because even the first film that I did, so people used to, because I did some films as a kid, so people constantly tell me, oh, you should act and you should, you know, you should act. So I used to be like, oh, whatever. And then I didn't have any clear-cut ambitions. I thought maybe journalist, maybe, you know, advertising, something I'll do, you know, I'll end up doing something. And then I got this offer for my first film, which was a Bengali film. So I really did it as a lark in the summer vacations between my second and third year. Then I did Titli with Rita Ora, just okay as an experiment, let's see. When she said Mr. and Mrs. Iyer, then also I was like, no, you must take a South Indian actress.
No, you see,
She tricked me. She tricked me.
The tabletop computer was in her room where I used to work at
Desktop,
night,
yeah.
the desktop. And then I used to read out the scenes to her. And she used to keep suggesting all kinds of names, the Reddy sisters, things like that, because it was a South Indian. And then when I was reading the scenes to her, I noticed the expressions flitting on her face. And then one day I thought to myself, why am I looking outside? She's right here.
She's a natural actress.
She's a natural actress. I knew that she was a natural actress, by the way. I directed her in Picnic, which was a telefilm. And Shabana Azmi said, if you think this girl is going to be anything but an actor, you've got another thing coming.
And then you do this iconic film, Mr. and Mrs. Iyer, which
very
is, you know,
lucky.
a film around the time that it came out. The Gujarat riots were there. You look at the issue of communism.
Recent, actually. It happened between two schedules.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and there's a
Eerie in
sense.
its clairvoyance.
Yes, it was. But I'm just wondering, tackling a film like that in the times in which we live, tough, easy, something that you'd already thought of over a period
I
of time?
had thought of it after the Bombay riots, and you know, after I had initially thought of a love story during a journey, because to me it always seemed like a journey was a very interesting metaphor. A physical journey was a very interesting metaphor for an internal journey, because people change, you know, and it was supposed to be that, but I had not thought of them being Hindu and Muslim. I'd been writing editorials, Rajdeep, for the longest time about communal harmony and, you know, ruining communal disharmony and so on and so forth. So when I wrote, the characters just became Hindu and Muslim.
So the film, in a sense, though, reflected strongly your political
Yeah.
leanings, your political ideology. That's how you saw your cinema, or you saw particularly Mr. and Mrs. Iyer, you know,
Yeah.
or possibly all your cinema.
All my films, because whatever you do, no person is completely devoid of politics. By the very act of voting, we're participating in a political act, you know. So it is, you have your own politics, feminist politics, whatever, humanist politics, whatever it is. And that just kind of came up in my cinema. It keeps on coming.
Is that true of you as well, your choice of films? For example, Lipstick Under My Burqa. I mean, when you do a film, does the film have to necessarily reflect your politics or what you feel strongly about? Or is it that if the role's good, I'll do it?
It is a bit of that, because, you know, if I had to wait for that, then I'd do very few films.
True.
Are you saying that mainstream cinema has no space for the
Not
kind of films that you feel, or the kind of issues that you feel
I'm
strongly
not saying
about?
that, but what I'm saying is that there are very few films which, you know, really reflect entirely your personality, your politics. Very few films are made like that. Not that I only did a lot of mainstream films, I did lots of other kinds of films as well. But not, you know, even if it's not a non-mainstream film, even if it's a film in the more alternative space, it doesn't necessarily reflect your politics. So I think if you had to wait for that, then you would be able to do very few films. You have to find a reason to do the films that you do.
But when she
Go ahead.
When she directed her own film, I found that definitely a lot of feminist politics came into it, because it was really a film that was very much against the accepted idea of macho, quote unquote. And how that can affect not only women but also you know, men who are perceived to be weaker. So she did that. I mean,
So the films that both of you would do would have a strong feminine subtext. I can't see you perhaps doing a Farah Khan kind of film, right? I mean, you know, you don't want to be, who knows, is it?
I don't know. There are no plans. I suspect that the films I make or act in or that get a chance to be involved with will probably, hopefully, you know, reflect my sensibilities.
But would I be right in saying that you perhaps are more comfortable in your skin as an actor and she as a director? I mean, you're the more, you know, you look at cinema more from the perspective of a director. For you, acting was the first step into cinema. In her case, perhaps...
I acted for the longest time.
I know you did, but you acted perhaps in an era where you didn't have the opportunities to experiment as easily perhaps as she did. You had to conform to the Bengali beauty.
No, and the typical, the kind of acting that we had to do with all that nakhra, I hated it. But you know, I also feel that Konkona is she's going to get angry with me, but she's a natural actor and I'm not. And I feel more comfortable as a director, yes.
You feel more comfortable as a director, but perhaps life as a director for her was tougher than it was for you, because you're in a generation where you now have more young women directors coming. There is a possibility of getting the films funded. May not be very easy, but you still have
Marginally better,
you know, a better possibility of making a good film than perhaps Aparna Sen had in the 70s. I've heard a story where apparently when you told a Bengali director that you were going to actually make a film, he looked at you and was shocked.
Right.
Who was that person?
Well, I shouldn't name names, but you know, he had a thin voice, and when he said, "I believe you're making a film," so I said, "Yes." "Oh, whose story is it?" I said, "Mine." "And whose screenplay?" I said, "Mine." "Oh, very brave." So he was very
brave.
Very brave. What the word he used was sahasika.
Sahasika.
Yeah.
Oh, so for a woman to make a film was sahasika.
Yeah, but this film happened very easily, my first film, Rajdeep. Very easily. I just sent the synopsis to Shashi, and you know, he asked me to come and read the script.
But there's a story there as well, I'm told. When you wrote 36 Chowringhee Lane and you sent it to Shashi Kapoor, he agreed to meet you, but said that he would only pay for one-way for your one-way fare from Kolkata to Mumbai.
No, because you see what happened was, he said, "Oh, I love your synopsis. How do I know that you can direct a film?" So I said, how do I convince you over the telephone? So he said, okay, come over. You pay for your trip, and if I make the film, I'll pay for your trip back. So I said, fair enough.
That's probably not going to happen in cinema today. That's certainly not going to happen with sort of the corporatization of cinema. But even so, did you find it difficult to get someone to have enough faith in you as a director when you decided to do Death in a Gun?
It was a little bit difficult. Also, you can't compare it all because I've just made one film, you know. So
and it's won awards.
It's won some awards, but I've just made the one film, and who knows, you know, when or if I'll make another film again. But it was difficult to get funding initially. I mean, I got lots of no's. I mean, I knew I would get those no's. I think that when I was writing the script, I knew that this is not a film that most people would want to make. I knew that. In any case, but you know, I wrote what I wanted to write. I did the rounds of, you know, all the narrations and some studios and things like that, and basically a lot of people said no, but I was very lucky to meet you know, my producers.
But you know what I find interesting and fascinating is your first films, your first film and your first directorial venture both have Anglo-Indians as protagonists. You know, and that, to my mind, was that pure coincidence?
My protagonist isn't an Anglo-Indian; he's a Bengali, but
yeah,
it's also in an Anglo-Indian world.
It's in an Anglo-Indian world. Yeah,
partially,
it's an Anglo-Indian world partly. So I'm just wondering whether that, you know, whether that was deliberate, conscious.
No coincidence.
No coincidence.
You know,
it was a coincidence.
It was
purely.
not planned. It was not planned, but it's just that, you know, so much of my it was based on my childhood, and McCluskeyganj happened to be a place which was once very popular with Anglo-Indians. They had a home there, so since she was influenced by Anglo-Indians, it's only natural that it would have come down to me.
Which was the more difficult film to make, you think? A 36 Chowringhee Lane or Death in the Ganj?
Oh my gosh, but how can you compare? And like 30 years later.
Even 36 Chowringhee Lane, I got some strange no's in the beginning until Ray read the script and he said, go to Shashi. But before that I got, what are we making? What do you want to sell? Sex, violence, what? So no, it's just a very, it's a small little story about a little old lady. I was so embarrassed, I didn't know what to say.
So in a sense, the multiplex culture which has come in has enabled a young woman like you to make a film the way you see it and then put it to an audience. At least you know that there is a potential audience out there. Perhaps in the early 1980s, you didn't even know whether there was a potential audience for a film that didn't conform to the traditional stereotypes.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering now, I'm just raising that as a...
Except that is a question that somehow never came to mind, you know, strangely. When I made the film, I never underestimated the audience, and I thought, if I am moved by the plight of this woman, then why should the audience not? I mean, I was pretty confident that they would like the story because it was a simple human story without, you know, going above your head and without being intellectual.
No, I know, simple human story, but you got this amazing performance out of Jennifer Kapoor, a sort of once-in-a-lifetime performance.
She was probably the best actress I've ever worked with. She's
really
wonderful.
And you worked with some very fine actors.
I've worked with some very fine actors, but they would also agree that Jennifer was probably one of the best.
Is one of the differences, therefore, between the Jennifer Kapoor kind of actor and today's actors whom maybe you will choose for a film, that she had that theatre background? Does that make a huge difference between the actors of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s certainly, and today's actors? Today's actors very rarely have a strong... There are a few, but in general, it's about this. It's back to the star system.
There's no guarantee. Of course, it's totally star system, and that is what, you know, decides the budget and the resources you have to make a film. It entirely depends on how big your stars are.
Are you comfortable with this star system? That you need big stars, you need to sort of have a big budget?
I don't think that's a great system which necessarily produces the best work, the best content.
What's the big difference between the cinema of the 80s, 90s which you did and the one that you now do?
Well, to start with, I think you have many more choices now. You know, the dividing line between what is called art theatre, art cinema and commercial cinema is actually breaking down. You have all kinds of stories now, all kinds of people making all kinds of cinema, which I think is wonderful, really, really wonderful. I mean, I saw that film Newton and I was amazed. I mean, what a fantastic film. You know, so you see films like Aligarh, you see all kinds of films these days which are so wonderful. But at that time there was only either formula fare or what was known as art cinema.
Or parallel, so-called
yeah,
parallel
it was
cinema.
parallel cinema, which used to basically was a lot of the time very slow and boring. But if you're talking about theatre, actors with theatre background, then I think that's always a help, even today. Some of the best actors that we have all come from theatre. Think of Nawaz, think of Nasir, think of Om. You know, all of them, Shabana Azmi, everybody, Lilette Dubey, all of them, Ranveer Shori, Rajat Kapoor, all these people, you know, they're all theatre background.
I don't agree though that, you know, if
I think that's a great way to start.
That's a great way to start. Amitabh, for all his,
Amitabh,
you know,
absolutely,
you know, did
he
have
used to-
that, you know,
yes,
the
had-
good sort of.
and you know, that also makes the actor very disciplined. That's a very important point.
Okay, I'll come back to the cinema in a moment. Life, you know, in this limited interaction, what was life like as a young kid growing up in Kolkata with Aparna Sen as your mother? What was life like? Was it intimidating? Were you someone who found life in the shadows of Aparna Sen not so easy?
You know, I think that by the time I was growing up, she wasn't such a, she was more of a film director than, you know, a mainstream actress at the peak of her career. So I think I saw her, and especially my memories, like growing up, you know, because I don't remember so well at, you know, 3, 4, 5, but like at you know, in the 80s, in the late 80s, you were already directing so many films.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really saw that, and she was also editing the magazine. So I think I saw like a really happy, busy, successful working woman, by and large, in many different roles. And a lot of very, and really a sisterhood, because there was, you know, of course my own sister, and also many of her close friends were also like a lot of these women. And that's what I saw growing up, really. And also that was so normal for me that I didn't really feel that it was any different, or that was my normal.
Your parents had separated by then. Did that scar you?
My
Did
parents
that,
had separated, I think, when I was 7.
Did that sort of bring you even closer to your mother in those years? Was this sisterhood, in a sense, protecting each other out there to look after each other? Was that the sense? Are you still protective of your mother?
I think we are protective of each other in the way that, you know, you are of people you love.
Yeah.
I think we are.
She was very attached to me, actually, for the longest time, you know. She was actually used to literally cling to my pallu. There was a time, remember?
Yeah, and
when
I used to go and sleep in her room at night. Almost every night I will end up
creep in and end up in my bed.
She just must have
And
been so annoying looking back.
We have been very sort of, our bond has been very, very close. Konkona's and mine, very close. The elder one, who I still am close to, but she went away very early. You know, she was 18 when she left, and she settled in the US. So,
But a professional working woman, raising her 2 children in Kolkata, you know, popular star. But in those days, did it
no,
come?
you know, Rajdeep, I just followed my nose. One day, Donna, the elder one, Kamulini, she comes in. She was a tiny girl, and I said, "I'm going to work, Mama. I'm going to the studio now." Work? You go to the studio and you have whiskey. She told me. I said, "What?" I said, "Listen, you come along. It's a holiday. Your summer holidays. You come along to the studio with me. Come and see if I have whiskey or I work or whatever, what I do." So I just took her along with me. And when I used to do my makeup, I remember she used to sit on the dressing table with her legs dangling, and we used to talk about so many things. She asked me about difference between monarchy and democracy, and you know, we used to keep chatting like that. Basically, I followed my nose. I didn't follow any, you know, any rules as such.
You know, I keep thinking, who's the Aparna Sen equivalent today? A multifaceted cultural personality.
They have to have parents like mine.
Ah. What was it like for you growing up with them?
Well, as I said, you know, we were told to start with, there is nothing that you cannot do if you want to do it, provided you're not hurting anybody else. So not at any stage did I ever feel that I was sort of, you know, I was hampered in any way by being a female child. Never, not for a second.
You're today a cosmopolitan child of New India. I mean, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Cosmopolitan woman of New India. Do you see a difference in that sense, in the way you look at life to the way an Aparna Sen does? Do you have the same strong politics? Are you still sort of willing to speak out for your political beliefs as she has perhaps in the past?
You know, we were just saying this earlier that, you know, growing up, I remember like in the 80s, it was just normal to criticize the government. Like that was the norm. Like everybody was always criticizing the government. There was nothing wrong with it. And you know,
you had to be anti-establishment. I mean, the
but everybody, you know,
the coffee house adda, the whole culture of Kolkata, coffee house adda was to speak out against whoever was in power.
Everybody could freely speak
and be left, of course, in those days.
No, even
without
now,
being feared, you know, without being scared that you'd be called an anti-national, you could freely speak.
Exactly.
You know,
you could be anti-establishment without being told that you're anti-national. And it is important to be anti-establishment because, as everyone knows, power corrupts. Whoever comes into power gets corrupted in some way or the other. So you have to you know, the citizenry is like an opposition which has to criticize. And I don't understand why, you know, if you're censuring yourself, which is it's the same as censuring your country, you know. You have to be critiquing your country in order for it to improve. Everybody, not just me or her.
Do you find it much more difficult than today to speak out? Are you much more wary or conscious of what you might say because how people will react compared to 20, 25 years ago?
I am not, because it really doesn't matter. I've lived too long and it doesn't matter. What can they do to me? Kill me? Okay, go ahead.
No, but I feel a lot more self-censorship than I mean, I'm aware of it much more than I ever have been in the past.
You know, because if I call her up and ask her to come on a television show to express her views, she might be pretty much ready to come there and express herself. Would you be just as willing?
No, I'm not at all interested in because I find them absolutely unbearable. The television programs with everybody shouting, I really don't think it accomplishes anything. I don't think also I'm qualified enough to talk about a lot of those subjects. Maybe some of them I may have some opinion on, and I just find it completely pointless to talk like that.
No,
I can
like
understand.
That, but if you had an opinion, if you have a strong opinion, let's say, would you be the kind who would be part of what they now call the award wap? You know, everything is caricatured, unfortunately, in today's world. So you're called part of the award wapsi gang.
See,
if you speak out on Kashmir, you'll be called Tukde gang. This is how, you know, this new social media world looks at those who are dissenters or anti-establishment. Does that in a sense mean that you will be less of
I think that it is
less willing than her to speak out?
I think it is hard to get your views across if you only rely on television programs. I don't think that is necessarily the correct way to put your political views across. I do think that the personal is also political, and I feel that I must live my life according to what I believe. And actually I have, not I have, but people can influence so many people in your immediate life, in just the way you live, in the conversations you choose to have, and with the people you choose to have the conversations with. It may not be in the spotlight, it may not be in camera, and that actually doesn't matter because that's so selective in any case, and I don't know how much you can get across really in depth in any case. And you know, a lot of it is also a learning for me. So I actually won't ever be doing that.
You'll never do that.
I don't think, I am not at all interested in going into a television program and shouting with 5 other people.
I'm saying today, if you wanted to write an article, express your views on something that you felt strongly about, would you think twice? She probably won't. That's the point I'm getting at.
I would probably think twice.
I would think twice.
Would you think twice before criticizing Mamata Banerjee?
I
in
might,
today's Kolkata?
yes, I might. But actually, what has happened is that
those who write Facebook posts in today's Kolkata are put in jail. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, actually, you know, that also I wouldn't be that scared because I'm also in a privileged position. You have to understand, you know. So it wouldn't be easy to just stuff me into jail and then, you know, just have nobody protest. That would happen, I'm sure, because of my seniority and so on and so forth. But also, you know, I think while I agree with Konkona totally that about 2 things, about that you live your life according to your beliefs, and that's a very, very important example that you said, and also that it really doesn't, you know, it's not really effective on television because of the short time and the number of people screaming at one another. That I don't care for. But having said that, I think it's also important for our voices to be heard publicly. I think that's very important.
Before I end this segment, I just want to understand, for you, is that a message that you get from your mother's life. Live life according on your terms, in the way you want. Don't allow society to dictate terms the way you see life. You've also gone through a divorce now. You've got a young child. I'm just wondering whether you want to live life the way you want.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily up to discussing my personal life on national television, but I also see no reason not to live my life exactly the way I want to live it. That's not been a problem, and whenever I need to express myself, I do. I mean, I have options to express myself.
When an issue of national importance or global importance comes up, I think voices which are recognizable also need to be heard.
That's true.
This
That's
I
true,
do
I
feel.
agree.
I feel that it is a responsibility that you have.
So let me end this segment by asking you once again, if you had to speak out against a Mamata Banerjee or a Narendra Modi, would you think twice?
Well, yeah, probably would think twice, but the point is that, it's the problem today is that the moment you make a criticism based on an issue, and my politics has always been issue-based rather than party-based, immediately you're clubbed with somebody. Even when we spoke out against the massacre at Nandigram, we were immediately told that we were with Mamata, which we were not.
Aparna Sen and Konkona Sen Sharma. Did I get the pronunciation right this
Not
time?
really.
Sort of. Yeah, this is my problem with Bengali names, despite having been married to a Bengali. It's one of the difficulties of life. What was it like working with Satyajit Ray? Do you have a sort of lifetime experience that you can recall, that you will remember?
Of
all
course,
these years?
I mean, Satyajit Ray was Satyajit Ray. I mean, to start with, I was very frightened when I was asked to act with him because, he was so imposing, tall, with that booming voice. But he was very kind. And since I was actually 14 when I started acting, I was just a young teenager, and he used to be very good with young people, He never, he always treated them as equals. So it was really nice. But then my one sort of lasting regret is that he never used me really after that, except in one telefilm called Piku. I was always, cast in little guest appearances.
You didn't sort of go and ask him, why not? Why aren't you giving me that big meaty role that I deserve?
I was supposed to do Bimala in Ghore Baire, but then at the last minute, never mind, I was so upset.
Who's the director that you've enjoyed most working with? You've done a lot of cinema now in the last 15 years with very different directors. Who's the one you've enjoyed working with?
Well, other than my mother, I've enjoyed. It's because it's great to have an environment of trust and all of that. It's rare. Other than my mother, I've enjoyed working with Rita Ora a lot. Because it's just always been so relaxed and easy and
relaxed,
spontaneous and comfortable and fun.
She's also known him since she was a child. She used to call him Ritu Mama.
So in a sense, his sort of passing away was a huge loss for Bengali cinema, for Indian, for cinema in general. Do you think Hindi cinema makers of the kind that you work with don't have that sensitivity or sensibility that a Ritu Ora had? Do they lack that somewhere?
I don't know, it's not like I watch a lot of mainstream Hindi cinema, I don't.
Come on, Konkona,
And
you're doing this as if you're saying, I'm there but not quite
But
in
it's
part of
true.
the cinema. Is that the way you
It's
see?
true,
You've
yeah.
got a leg in cinema, of Hindi cinema, but you're still out of it.
Yeah,
So
that's
someone
true.
who does films like Page
I
3, Luck
can-
by Chance, many of them very
That's all in
successful.
2004, 5, 2007, 2008. It's a while ago, it's more than 10 years ago.
And since then you decided
I've done
consciously.
some work. No, not at all. I mean, I've done some work, which has been mainstream. Some work, a lot of work which has not been, and I enjoy having, like being a bit of an outsider. I really enjoy that perspective and very comfortable in that situation.
You're comfortable
It's
in
nice
the
not
idea
to really commit to anything.
of not even attempting at any stage to even try to be part of a star system.
That's not my way of thinking. That's not what it's not like I've set out to be part of it or reject it. It's not a binary, and that's not the only way to look at it. I'm really I think because influenced by my mom, I've just been more individualistic. I've just looked at my own thing, and just seen, what's interesting here amongst what I have, and let's see if I should do this. So it's not really been like, star system, no star system. It's not like that at all. It's more like inwards, I think. I think.
Yeah, she's very much her own person, very much.
You know, but obviously when in the cinema that you did, and you broke stereotypes, even in the films you directed. I mean, I remember there was a film that you did which looked at a lesbian relationship.
Well, there was a lot of grey.
Yeah, there was a lot of grey, but you know, those
areas.
were all, I mean, in the times in which you were doing this, you were breaking new grounds. Again, as I said in Mr. and Mrs. Iyer, dealing with the sensitivity that you did with communalism was, you know, something which in those days was not easy for filmmakers to handle. So I mean, I presume she, you know, breaking stereotypes is part of.
Oh, yeah.
Of
Yeah,
your
We have to
life.
break stereotypes, Mama. That's
Yeah,
what we have to do.
Yeah, I mean,
No, but-
I mean, you're basically here to create a bit of, you know, trouble
But
out there.
Rajdeep, it was, yeah, but except that it wasn't thought out like that. It's an idea which kind of gets you, you know, and then you live with it for a while, and then, you know, images start crowding your mind, and then you have to, you know, it's crying out to be made into a film, and you have to make the film. It's like a compulsion. I actually haven't ever thought of, oh, is this going to work with audiences or is this not? This is a strange thing, you know. When I'm writing the script, I haven't kind of idealized audience in mind. I keep it in the audience in mind only to the extent that I don't want to say something overly intellectual that will, you know, pass over the heads of people, and I
You
don't want
never
to do
thought
that.
of box office.
No, because
Not
that's
once.
Not once. Not once. Not one film have I made thinking of the box office. But I've always thought that, of course, you know, there's no reason why audiences should not like it.
Will you be able to do that today? Will you be able to, you think, the critical acclaim that your first film got, will that lead you to experiment more, or will the Hindi film industry eventually overwhelm you? I'm sorry to ask this again, but would you make that Farah Khan kind of film? You know,
You want me to make a Farah Khan?
I want you to make, you know, why is it that you can't make
I
one?
really enjoyed it. I have to say, I
enjoy
really
Farah
enjoyed it.
Why can't you make a
I enjoy
male,
Farah Khan's
Mehuna.
films.
why can't a
Yeah.
female director make a male-dominated film?
We must tell us what to do.
You know, with all the sort of masala that you can
Yes,
get of
we must.
Bollywood.
Excuse me, but male dominated doesn't mean having masala.
No, the formula film.
But why formula? There's so many people, Rajdeep, making formula films, and they're doing it very well. Why do I have to add to that crowd?
I think I'll just, hopefully I'll make a film which I find interesting.
Are
Hopefully.
female directors more sensitive, you think, in general?
Must we club all female directors together? Are we making, it's very hard to club all male directors together, because I think it just depends on a person's level of humanity and their sensibility, and, you know, how their level of education, their exposure to world
So there's no
issues.
sisterhood as such.
You can't.
There's no sisterhood of
Oh,
film
there are
directors.
some very regressive and patriarchal women, just as there are some very evolved and progressive men. Few.
Very few. Very few, is
One
it?
would like to believe, yeah.
But no, but I really feel that
I can see the two of you together intimidating most Indian men.
why?
Because for the very reason that she said, most Indian men are regressive and
Did I say
patriarchal.
that? Did I?
She
Oh,
said
I
that,
said
yeah, you
few,
did.
yeah.
Of course you did. Yeah,
So
of course
many
you did.
women
Yes,
also,
yes,
Rajdeep, who are regressive.
Absolutely.
And just as, and she said that there are men who are progressive. We're sitting right
Then
in
we're-
front of
yeah,
one.
exactly. And then we're not interested in men who are intimidated by us so easily.
Yeah, I mean, men who are intimidated by us would be very boring men.
Really?
I think so. Why would
And
they be
maybe they're not intimidated,
unless
you
unless they are men who expect women not to have a mind of their own, not to have voices of their own, and to constantly be submissive. But that's not the kind of women that we are. That's not the kind of women that we even mix with. I mean, all our friends are different.
Is she a good grandmother?
She has been an unconventional mother and grandmother. She's been an unconventional mother and grandmother, and actually I have very early on learned to appreciate that, because it's the things you can find in it that you can't replace very easily.
You're happy to leave your young son Harun with your mother saying,
Will she damage him for life? Maybe, but in an interesting way.
No, but you know, these children are these youngsters are very hands-on parents. I mean, I would happily leave my children with my mother without a thought in my head. But now they're all, you know, their heads are filled with how to bring up children.
No,
and
I'm
so on.
scared. She's so scared. So she's like,
No.
will I manage? Oh,
No. But I remember that you took Harun to Calcutta and you had some work, and Harun and I went and We went off to the mall by ourselves. She played and we had coffee and cakes and stuff like that. We had a wonderful time.
Kolkata or
Went well.
Mumbai?
Kolkata.
Which is the nicer place?
For me, actually I love Mumbai also.
You like Mumbai?
Very much. Very much. And I love Coco's friends.
What are your friends like? Normal fun people of Mumbai?
Yeah.
Does Mumbai allow women particularly to be who they are?
You know, it depends on how wealthy you are, where you live, what kind of privileges you have, regardless of which city you live in.
In India, do you feel there's less space for the liberal progressive voices? I've asked you this earlier today. For more Aparna Sens to come out and say, look, we're not going to conform to the rules that you set. We're going to do our own thing.
You know, I just feel that India is a country that lives in so many different centuries, so many different time frames at the same time, you know. There are people, there are a handful of people who are progressive and who are wonderful wherever they are. They may be in Chennai, maybe in Delhi, maybe in Mumbai, maybe in Calcutta.
To find your people.
Those people are always, and those are the people that we generally are, you know, basically communicating with or mixing with. So in a way, when we're talking to them, the initiated are talking amongst themselves.
That's right. So you're talking to, it's almost like an echo chamber.
Yeah,
where the liberals are talking to each other, the conservatives are talking to each other.
But more and more I find Kolkata becoming less like it used to be, because it's, earlier on, women in Kolkata, if they were traveling, you know, they always knew that the men would be respectful. Today that doesn't happen anymore, and people have become very indifferent to the plights of other people.
Your definition of feminism? When you're, no, come on now, don't look at it as
No, I am a feminist. I'm a very proud feminist, but I hate these like...
When you say, I know, that's television, that's the soundbite of television.
Why must I give a quick bite on feminism? I'm often asked this.
So what does it, how do you...
I'm also learning and understanding and researching, you know.
She's in the flux.
She's in the, okay, I won't ask you a 20-second soundbite.
Yeah, thank you.
I won't.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I mean, you know...
I'll just leave you be to say that I'm a feminist. And
yes, I'm a proud feminist, and I think most of us are. Anybody who believes in equal rights for, you know, women, and the fact that women should have, you know, choices and, you know, agency over their own lives and their own bodies, we're all feminists, even whether we know it or not.
That's another bond that draws you together. You agree with every word that she's just said.
Absolutely.
Don't you?
I do.
Are you not a proud feminist? Say it now here.
Okay, I am a proud feminist. Let me say that.
You know, if you're a humanist, you've got to be a feminist as well. How can you not be?
Actually, that's how I see myself, as a humanist.
That's how I see myself too, as a humanist, and therefore, you know, all these things, rights of women, you know, women having agency over their lives, you know, that's an issue, equal wages, child trafficking, all kinds of things, you know, liberty, works, rights of minors, everything comes into that one.
Yeah, and also what the wonderful things about the human race and about humanity in general, unlike the animal kingdom, is that we can care for our downtrodden.
Yeah.
We can care for the people who are not looked after. We can care for the minorities. That's the wonderful thing about the human. That is what is so inspiring about the human race.
And
you know,
that is
feminism is part of
away.
that, I think.
And you know, that today I feel in today's society, that is getting more and more endangered. You know, we are frightened. See, when I make a film, I'm not thinking about the audience, but I am thinking, oh my God, will it pass the censors? I am thinking of that.
So when a Padmavat-like controversy, you know, happens, it must make you feel, as filmmakers, that is the space shrinking for dissent to be socially, politically active, conscious citizens.
Of course. The point is, whether it's a good film, whether it's a bad film, it must be allowed to be seen.
Absolutely. So will I see, and this is my last question to you, will we see the two of you bringing this creative energy, these strong political and social viewpoints together in a project? Can we see Konkona Sen Sharma and Aparna Sen do a major project together in the future?
I've been asking her, let's direct a film together.
Okay, I think he's talking about the Farah film that he wants us
No, project. Not at all. The project. Are you going to do a project together? Will we see
kind of
Mr. and Mrs. Iyer
film project
for a new generation?
We've worked together in 4 films, and hopefully we will again.
Yeah, but I've been telling her, let's direct a film together.
Yeah, why don't you direct a film together?
Write a script together, direct a film together, because we constantly discuss each other's ideas threadbare. I mean, even last night we were going on and on about some story idea that she has, and we were constantly exchanging and brainstorming. That we do. So why don't we direct a film together is what I said.
What was your response?
Yeah, I mean, things have to happen organically. Things will happen. I don't think, I'm not much of a planner like that. I can't. Like,
So you're living life in the moment. You're living life in the moment.
But you have to make things happen.
Yeah.
She wants to make things happen. You want to live life in the moment. Well, that's wonderful. You can live life in the moment and she can do all the planning. And we look forward to the two of you bringing your creative energies together into a film project, not necessarily major. Aparna Sen, Konkona Sen Sharma, thank you very much for joining me on India Today, India Tomorrow. That's it on this show. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.